So it's not Monday, but I am going to do an episode of Exotic Recrafting today because we skipped Monday, and yeah, we need to get back on it. Anyways, that being said, there is an iconic armor piece on Titan that I wanted to talk about today. And this is one that I had completely forgotten about, and I don't remember what exactly it was that reminded me this exotic existed, but I looked into it and I played with it for a little bit, and it definitely could use some buffs. There's a reason why we don't see it ever, and that exotic is Arbor Warden for the Titan. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to remind you I will be live Tuesdays and Thursday nights starting at 9 p.m. Central, so come check it out. We talked about Destiny 2 for like 2.5, 3 hours, and with that plug out of the way, let's talk about Arbor Warden. And I feel like it's appropriate to start by talking about what it does first. Basically, when you have your class ability charged, when you activate it, instead of actually placing your Titan barricade, or if you have thruster, your thruster, it will allow you to throw a grenade. It will grant you a special grenade that will allow you to throw it and deploy your barricade wherever the grenade lands. And this barricade does inherit the traits of your your standard barricade, standard class ability. So if you're using Bastion, for example, on Void, and you throw it, it will grant your allies an overshield. If you're using Drainer's Lash, it will spawn that, that strand energy out that suspends energy, enemies. That is pretty cool. However, you're probably asking yourself, what is the utility of this? And I'll be honest, I think the utility is really limited. This to me strikes me as a support exotic almost. Like, it's nice to be able to deploy a barricade wherever you want on the battlefield instead of having to be specifically at a location, but it's just way too situational. So I have some changes in mind, and as with most of our exotic armor pieces, we're going to talk about some minor changes. These will keep the original function but just add a little bit more utility to them. Then we'll move on to major changes, which are designed to keep the identity of the exotic but overhaul it in a way that provides substantially more value on the battlefield. And finally, we will talk about a total rework to this exotic, which will basically change completely how the exotic is used. But let's start with the minor changes. First things first, I think just having a small class ability energy boost on like primary kills or something similar to Radiant Dance Machines would benefit this majorly, right? Like, it's all about using your class ability. All it's doing is giving you a barricade. Like, it's not really offensive. Like, you can use it offensively, like with Drainer's Lash, for example, but for the most part, it's really not an offensive piece of gear. So I think that having just something as simple as you get faster ability cooldown with primary ammo kills would really help this a lot. Now, I also think you could on the flip side, instead of doing that, perhaps as the barricade is taking damage, it actually provides you with class ability energy. So when you throw one of these berry nades, as they're called, when you throw a barricade, it will deploy, and if you have allies standing behind it, enemies will be shooting at it. It'll be taking damage, and as it's taking damage, it is giving you that class ability back. I think that would be, again, something else that just would help boost the exotic a little bit more. Again, it would allow you to have more access to that barricade grenade, and then maybe you could see some plays where, okay, like, you have a teammate who has this exotic on, and they throw, and you're going up a hallway, for example. There's a lot of enemies. You can throw one, it deploys, then you can walk up, move up behind that barricade, then they could throw another one a little bit further up ahead, and just allow the team to kind of progress down, say, like a hallway or something similar to that with relative ease. I think that would just be a nice little touch to it. Now, the only other minor change that I would like to see is allowing the players to hold on to the barricade charge after getting the class ability back. So currently you might see it in the background gameplay, but whenever you activate your class ability and it turns your grenade into that barricade, it will remove the barricade once your class ability is like fully off cooldown. Like, once it fully recharges, you will lose that barricade. I don't see a reason why. I mean, I guess it's maybe to promote players to actually use the barricade, but this, to me, again, this is a support exotic. I feel like it's something that you want to have it in your back pocket ready to go whenever you want. So at the start of an activity, you can activate your barricade, then you get your class ability back, but you have that barricade just in case, oh my gosh, my teammates are about to get murked by, a charging knight. I can now throw my barricade, blind that knight as it steps through it, give my teammate just a little bit of breathing room so that they can get out of there, something like that. But currently it doesn't work like that. It does have a long activation time, which I'm not opposed to the activation time. Like, it is fundamentally changing how your barricade works. You no longer have to be right next to your barricade, so I think there should be some kind of trade-off and the long activation time, you know, where you have to pull out the grenade and hit the button and whatnot. Like, I think that's completely okay, but Bungie, I think, should allow players to hold on to that Baronade charge even after they get their class ability back. Yes, this would potentially allow players to do back-to-back. You know, you throw your Baronade, it creates a barricade, you immediately activate your class ability, and you pop another one, so then you have 2 walls out on the battlefield. But I think that, again, that's not that big of a deal. Like, Titan barricades are not something that's crazy OP on the battlefield, so I think that'd be okay. But with that being said, those are my minor changes, you know, to Arbor Warden, sorry, not Warden, to Arbor Warden. Now I want to talk about some of my major changes, and the primary major change that I want to see to Arbor Warden is a little bit more of an offensive capability. Again, when you're using Arbor Warden, you should be using your barricade more offensively. Like, the barricade is typically a pretty defensive option. You know, you place it when you need to revive a teammate, you place it when you're about to, you know, bunker in and deal some damage, something like that. But with Arbor Warden, you're kind of being more aggressive with it. And I think that creating an elemental explosion around your barricade would be a wonderful benefit that you could have to this, and maybe not to the same level as like a grenade. You know, it's not like you just have like, you know, a massive grenade that just goes off and kills everything, but having some sort of elemental explosion would just add a little bit more to that viability in terms of its aggressive nature of the exotic. And I think also you could take it a step further and add an elemental debuff to nearby targets when you throw this. So similar to, like, let's say a flashbang, for example. Similar to a flashbang, when you throw a Arbor Warden grenade, it will blind enemies nearby. When you throw, if you're on Arc, of course, if you're on, say, Stasis, it would slow nearby enemies. You know, if you are on Void, it would weaken nearby enemies to that barricade, just to give it, again, a little bit more, you know, subclass utility and a little bit more offensive capabilities, I guess. I also think that you could go a step further here, and the explosion could also provide subclass buffs to nearby allies. So again, if you're using, say, Arc, you know, not only do you create a blinding explosion when you cause that barricade, that Baronade to go off, but also any nearby allies then become amplified. That's a tough word to say. I think that that would, again, it would help build into this idea of this being a support exotic, because that's really what this strikes me as, is a support offensive exotic. And I think that doing these things would help to kind of bring it more in line with that role that it has. And it would be really interesting, because it would inherit a lot of the, you know, subclass identity that some of the other grenades have. And I think a lot of people might have an issue with that, and Bungie themselves might have an issue like that. Like, you know, if you have Arbor Warden on, you're basically throwing a flashbang out, but it wouldn't inherit like things like Touch of Thunder. Like, it wouldn't cause, you know, 2 blinding explosions or something like that. Like, it would just be enough to give it some more viability in combat. Now, I also think that another thing that you could do, another major change that you could make, is when the barricade is deployed near an ally, that ally gets some ability energy back and a small boost to their reload and handling. Nothing crazy, just maybe like a 10-second reload boost where they get +20 to their reload and +20 handling. You know, and then the class ability, or I'm sorry, not the class ability, but the ability energy in general, just, you know, melee, grenade, class ability, just give like 10%. Nothing crazy, but again, it is a support exotic. Let's build into the idea of it being a support exotic that you can throw at your allies. Like, oh my gosh, like, this person's potentially gonna die, let me throw my Baronade at them. I'm on Solar, for example, and I can give them restoration, and then I can scorch nearby enemies, and then they also get some more class ability energy or some more grenade ability energy. I think that would be a really good change that Bungie could make to Arbor Warden here to give it that support role. But those are it for my major changes. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is a total rework to the exotic. And the idea behind a total rework is not changing the like core of the exotic, but changing it so much that it is almost a shell of its former self, but it still performs kind of the same function. And with this being said, the first thing I would want to see Bungie do is require it to have Void synergy specifically. So no longer do you have, you know, a Dringer's Lash on Stasis. I'm sorry, on Void Titan. No longer Strand Titan, if I can get my words out. No longer do you have, you know, Storm's Keep Barricade if you're on Arc. Like, now you have to be playing on a Void subclass. But when you have a void subclass and when you activate your Baronade, you can then throw that Baronade and it basically creates a small protective dome wherever the grenade lands. This is very similar to Edge of Action, so you could pair it theoretically with Edge of Action, have 2 bubbles on the field at any given time. But again, this is building into that defensive, kind of idea, but it also is building a lot more into like being, something that's maybe a little bit more supportive. Those bubbles on the battlefield, like they're not really all that great if you're not utilizing them for defensive purposes. But let's say you've got a teammate down, you can throw your Baronade that will create a bubble now on spawn. Then you could run inside of that bubble. You could pick up your teammates. You get a small weapon damage boost. I don't think you need a void overshield thing. I think that should kind of remain exclusive to Helm of Saint 14, but you would have that protective dome around them so that if they got killed by, say, snipers, for example, you could go pick them up and be protected from those snipers, at least for a little bit. Then y'all could plan an escape or something of that nature. But that would be the way that I would fundamentally rework Arbor Warden. And again, this one a little bit odd just because it's taking away its synergy with all other subclasses and locking it specifically to void. But at the same time, I think that is an appropriate change because of the power that this new ability would have. Because then again, you wouldn't have to use Edge of Action. You could have that mini bubble at your disposal whenever you need it. And especially if you're using a Rally Barricade has a very quick cooldown. And maybe this is something Bungie would need to look at, and give it an increased cooldown or something like that. Not quite to the level of Bastion, because I think Bastion cooldown is just ridiculously long, but maybe give it a longer cooldown. So you can't just spam a bubble and then 7 seconds later spam another bubble and then 15 seconds later spam another bubble, because that might be a little bit too much. But with that being said, those are my ideas for Arbor Warden. I want to hear your thoughts on my ideas. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Tell me what changes you would make to Arbor Warden, all that good stuff. And guys, do me a favor, watch the videos you see here on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you like them. Like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see y'all in the next one. Guys, bye for now.